So yes, applying grading for growth to an upper level undergraduate engineering course. I will admit I am in an ME department with a bioengineering program, and so this is actually an ME course. But I think these things apply to both disciplines very nicely. And I'm going to base it on this book, and I'm going to hold it up in front of my face so everybody sees. This Grading for Growth by Clark and Talbert, and I read this last spring, and it got me sort of interested in thinking of how could I apply this. And I also attended a talk that showed how somebody else had applied this. And so this is my application of these ideas. And so grading for growth is about alternative grading methods with 4 pillars. So the first pillar is you clearly define those standards of what you expect. You give helpful feedback. You give marks that indicate progress, and then you reassess without penalty. And that's the big component that I think about. And the course I did it in is ME 682, which is control systems. It's a required course for our seniors and 113 students, so gigantic course. And so historically, pre-transition, and so this is the 2010s. I've been doing this for a while. I gave weekly graded homeworks. I had daily active learning, and then I had a pretty high stakes midterm and final. And I found that particularly with the final, with the seniors, they just weren't really learning like the last half of the course very well, maybe the last quarter of the course. And I thought I could maybe improve that. And so right around 2019, I did my first transition, which I'm calling their phase 1. Still had the weekly homework, still had the daily active learning. I'd added some projects to give some sort of real world flavor to seeing how this is applied, since it's a very math and theory heavy course. But also I broke the course down into smaller units, and they ranged from 4 to 7. And I found the optimal number was about 5. So that was a unit every 3 weeks. And so a test every 3 weeks. And then I said, okay, well, I can give them a chance to retake on the final. So during my final exam period, they could take a bunch of the units and retake them. And that really worked, and it helped some students. But unless they were close to a border, they didn't always take advantage of that retake opportunity. So I wanted to see if I could do something better. And I attended all these things and read this book. And I said, okay, so this last fall, I went for a grading for growth approach. And so it's standard-based learning or standard-based grading. So first thing is I really was intentional about 30% of my grade is effort. It's the things I want them to do that I know will help them learn. So I'm going to grade them basically on effort. And 70% of my assessments are, do you know the stuff I want you to know? Or can you do the things I want you to do? On the effort side, I changed from grading the homework to self-graded homework. So they got half the points for the homework for completing the homework. And then as soon as they turned it in complete, they would get a solution, and they were supposed to go through, compare their homework to the solution, and give us did I do it right? Did I not do it right? If I didn't do it right, what did I do wrong, and how do I fix it? So it lowered the homework grading barrier because we didn't have to grade it. They graded it themselves. We just had to check them off. We still had the daily active learning. The projects became exploratory activities, but essentially the same. And then on the standards-based side, the 70%, I still had the 5-unit exams, and I divide those exams up into 38 standards. I had 12 standards on the first one, and then 5 to 7 on the rest. And so for each standard, there was a homework that matched it. There was a daily active learning that matched it. And then they got into the exam, and hopefully they'd already seen some problems. They'd seen a practice test. And if they did not succeed on if they didn't meet a mastery grade on it, they had a chance to retake it. And for all of the standards, we had a chance to retake on the final. And for the ones I saw the class was struggling most, I took 3 of them on the next test that they could retake on the next test. So every standard had at least 1 chance to retake. Some of them had 2. The way we graded that, so if they got it perfect, it was mastered. If they got minor errors, they had sign errors, maybe a calculation error, maybe they got most of the problem, but they didn't get the last part correct. Or if I had multiple problems on a standard, they got most of them, but not the last one. We would say master with minor error. And then they could become master if they submitted to us a revision that said, here's how I fix my errors. The next level up was progressing. So progressing, they got 50% of the points for that. And that was if they had some stuff that was okay, but they didn't show that they had mastered that skill. And then no evidence if it was blank, if they didn't take the test, or if they just gave us nonsense. that was the standards-based grading. And so, how did that turn out? So first thing, it made grading easier. So, Nafisa, I know, is my GTA, and she's on here too, and it made the grading a lot easier, which with 113 students is a consideration. And my students were less stressed because they always had an opportunity to fix their problems, and they even the sort of the high flyer A students all felt less stressed because they knew they had a chance to fix it, and they knew they had a chance. I felt they had to continue to learn rather than just give them partial credit for a partial answer. They had this opportunity to relearn and demonstrate it later. And I overall, at the end of the day, I had overall class performance. Now it was touchy. I would say 2 weeks out, I had a 30% DFW rate. I had a very bimodal. I had a bunch of A's. A lot of my B's ended up as A's through those later exams. And then a lot of my C's were actually down with my D's and F's for a while there. I will say we also did one other change, which was with the homework. We had a deadline, but it was no penalty for it being late. So we did get a lot of homeworks in towards the end. So some of them had to pull it out in the end. But in the end, my class average went quite a bit up. And I haven't done the analysis exactly on the grades yet, but qualitatively that occurred. So those were the positives. What were the negatives? I had to write a lot of exam questions. I had to have at least 2 exam questions times 38 standards plus same number of homework problems and active learning. I probably would lower the number of standards. 38's a lot. I also had some integration issues. We use Canvas as our LMS system. I know some people use Canvas or Blackboard. Canvas can do this, but it's not perfect, and it takes a lot of figuring out to make it work exactly right. And with that, I'm ready to go. So open up to questions.